Your child can watch a 90-minute movie without blinking, but ask them to sit through a 10-minute homework assignment, and it's a full meltdown. Parents call this a short attention span. But here's what's actually happening. It's not that your child can't pay attention. It's that their brain has been trained to expect a very specific kind of stimulation, and anything slower than that now feels, to their nervous system, almost unbearable. Today, I'm breaking down what screen time is actually doing to your child's attention span. Not the moral panic version, the actual neuroscience, and what you can do about it without necessarily throwing every device out the window. Hey, welcome back. I'm Maya. This is one of the most argued about topics in parenting, and for good reason. The research is messier than most headlines make it sound. Some studies show a clear link between heavy screen use and attention problems. Others show it depends entirely on content type, age, and what the screen time is replacing. So today, instead of another "screens are evil" video, I want to actually walk you through the mechanism. What's happening inside a developing brain when it's regularly exposed to screen media, so you can make sense of the research yourself and make decisions that fit your family instead of a headline. First, let's define what we're even talking about. Attention span isn't one single skill. Researchers usually split it into a few types: sustained attention, staying focused on one thing over time; selective attention, filtering out distractions; and executive attention, the ability to control what you focus on, even when something more interesting is competing for it. That third one, executive attention, is largely run by the prefrontal cortex, the same region we've talked about before, the one that's still developing well into a person's 20s. It's the part of the brain responsible for choosing to focus on boring math homework instead of the far more interesting thought in your head. And it's the part most affected by how a child's daily environment trains their brain to expect stimulation. Here's where screens come in specifically. Most children's screen content, especially fast-edited shows, short-form video, and many games, is engineered, often deliberately, to maximize engagement. Quick cuts, constant novelty, a new visual or sound roughly every few seconds. This isn't accidental. It's the entire business model behind a lot of children's media and short-form platforms. Every new stimulus triggers a small dopamine release. The brain's chemical signal for "this is interesting, pay attention." When a child's brain repeatedly experiences novelty delivered every few seconds, it begins to calibrate its baseline expectation for stimulation around that pace. Not because the child is broken, but because brains, especially developing ones, are remarkably good at adapting to whatever environment they're given. Researchers sometimes call this reward sensitization, the brain adjusting its expectations based on repeated exposure to a stimulus pattern. Now compare that pace to almost everything else in a child's day: a classroom lesson, a book, a conversation with a sibling, a worksheet. None of these deliver a new stimulus every 2 to 3 seconds. They unfold slowly, sometimes boringly, by design. If a child's brain has been calibrated to expect constant novelty, that slower pace doesn't just feel less exciting. It can feel, physiologically, like something is wrong. An understimulated, almost restless internal state some researchers describe as resembling mild withdrawal. That's often what's actually happening when a child says a slower task is boring within 30 seconds. It's not laziness. It's a genuine mismatch between what their brain has been trained to expect and what the task is actually offering. There's a second mechanism worth understanding: attention residue. Every time attention switches from a screen to a task, back to a notification, back to the task, a small cognitive cost gets paid. Some of the previous focus sticks to the new task, dividing available attention. Adults experience this too. It's why constant app switching makes deep work harder. In children whose days include frequent screen-to-task-to-screen transitions, this switching cost can accumulate, making sustained focus on any single slower task measurably harder, sometimes even hours after the screen was turned off. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is where a lot of parenting content oversells the certainty of the science. Most of the research connecting screen time to attention problems is correlational, meaning it shows a relationship, not proof of direct causation for every child. Some studies find content type matters more than total screen time. Fast-paced, high-stimulation content correlates with attention difficulties more strongly than slower, narrative-based content does. Other studies point to what screen time is displacing: sleep, outdoor play, face-to-face interaction, as the real driver of attention issues, not the screen itself. The honest takeaway isn't screens destroy attention spans. It's that certain patterns of use, specifically high stimulation, fast-paced, frequently interrupted screen time, appear to train a developing brain stimulation baseline in a specific direction, and that direction makes slower, effortful attention harder to access. So what do you actually do with this? A few evidence-informed shifts, not extremes. First, content pace matters more than total time. A slower-paced, narrative show is a meaningfully different experience for a developing brain than fast-cut, algorithm-optimized short-form content. If you're choosing between the two, pace is the variable to prioritize. Second, build in device-free stretches, especially before tasks that require sustained focus. Homework, reading, even dinner, so the brain has a chance to recalibrate downward before being asked to sustain slow attention. Third, protect the boredom. This sounds counterintuitive, but tolerating understimulation, actual boredom, with nothing available to immediately fix it, is itself a skill that gets trained. A child who's never allowed to sit in boredom for even a few minutes doesn't get the practice reps needed to build that tolerance. Fourth, watch with your child sometimes, not instead of talking to them. Co-viewing and discussing content adds a slower, more reflective layer on top of the fast stimulation, which some research suggests can partially offset the pacing effect. I want to be clear about something. This isn't a video telling you to eliminate screens or feel guilty about the shows your child watches. Screens aren't the villain of modern parenting. They're a tool, like almost everything else, that works differently depending on how it's used. The goal isn't zero screen time. It's understanding that pace and content type are doing more work than the clock is, and making a few intentional adjustments where you actually can. If this changed how you think about screen time, hit subscribe. Next week, I'm covering the exact signs that your child's screen habits are becoming a problem versus just normal modern childhood. Let's recap. Attention span isn't one skill. Executive attention is the piece most affected by daily stimulation patterns. Screens, especially fast-paced content, train the brain's dopamine system to expect novelty every few seconds. That creates a pacing mismatch with slower, real-world tasks, which can feel physically uncomfortable rather than just boring. Switching between screens and tasks adds a cognitive cost that accumulates across the day. The research is genuinely mixed on total time, but fairly consistent on pace and content type mattering. And the fix isn't elimination. It's shifting towards slower content, protecting boredom, building device-free stretches, and co-viewing when you can. If you recognized your own child in any of this, you're not alone, and this isn't about guilt. Most of us are figuring this out in real time with technology that didn't exist when we were kids. Comment pace over time if that's the one shift you're taking away from this, and subscribe for next week's video on where the real line actually is. See you in the next one.